Hi friends, hope you are doing well. Today I am going to discuss an important topic, and this topic is what is the impact of marriage on PhD and PhD students. So I have decided to divide this video into 4 parts, and we are going to discuss each type of person separately and see what are the advantages, disadvantages, and what are the problems they may face given their particular marital status. So let's begin. Now the first problem is where people are essentially bachelors or single people, and these are PhD students. So this is often the case that people are single, they do not have any girlfriend, any wife, any husband, any boyfriend for that matter. And in many cases what happens that these kind of guys have a lot of time at their disposal, and if they are people who have good concentration, good focus, then they can devote all this time to doing research. So this is probably the best possible scenario for PhD students in many cases. But what I have seen actually in my years as a professor is that many a time these students waste a lot of their time. Now this time could be wasted in playing video games, it could be wasted in watching movies on Netflix, and also sometimes just in loitering around the campus, gossiping, and so on. So what often happens is that the fact that these guys are single, these guys are bachelors, means that they are still too mature, and they essentially continue their life just like they were a bachelor's degree student in their present bachelor phase also. Now there are some students who tend to be focused. These are generally the loner type of students or the deep introverts, and they can get a lot of work done when they are in this single status. But for many people I have seen that there is a problem of drifting, there is a problem of becoming what is known as a perennial graduate student or a lifetime PhD student. So these students essentially spend a lot of time in the campus, they go through various books, they read a lot of literature, they often sit in courses without telling their professor and so on, and the result is that the time they take to do their PhD degree gets greatly increased, and after some time they start receiving letters from the dean and the chairman as to why they are taking so long to do their degree. So now let's look at the second type of student, and this is the PhD student couple. So this is often a situation where there is a boyfriend-girlfriend combination, and these guys essentially are both PhD students. So one of the advantages here is that they can provide emotional support and they can help each other in times of distress or in times of problems, and they can also share their good times together. So this is the good part about this situation. There is also a general desire to actually graduate, finish their degree, maybe move on with their life, get married, and so on. And they also often would like to move their research faster. So in this case, if the couple is a good couple, then what happens is that each person pushes the other one to graduate faster, to do his research better, and so on. And sometimes there may be even technical synergies which are possible. So I have had students who were in different disciplines, maybe one is in physics and one is in engineering, and these people can even exchange various ideas, various software packages, and so on as to how their research could do better. Now sometimes the negative side of this is that competition can creep into the relationship, and it can unfortunately do damage to the relationship. And the worst possible scenario here is that many a time these relationships may break up, and the breakup itself causes a lot of distress to the students concerned. So that can derail the PhD process quite substantially, because anyway you are somebody who has to get a lot of rejection in the PhD system, because as you know, whenever you submit a paper, you often get harsh reviews and so on. You often get harsh reviews even from your PhD supervisor. So what you do not want to get is to get rejection from your boyfriend or girlfriend also. That is going to add to the negativity of the situation. But then again, that's a part of life of modern day people, so they have to deal with it. Now the third issue is the situation where there is a married PhD student couple, and this is a situation where both the students are PhD students and they are married. And this is a good situation in many ways, because here now there is a stable relationship which is more or less fixed, and they essentially have a lot of pressure to graduate. So these guys essentially can help each other in their research activities, in providing emotional support and so on, and they can focus on doing their PhD work and complete their study. Now very often these kind of students also get graduate apartments in the campus. So there are apartments which are specially reserved for married graduate students, and this is one advantage because often these apartments are low in cost and they provide a nice living environment because you are in the campus, and therefore a lot of facilities are there for you. For example, you may have access to food, you may have access to all kind of bookstores, libraries, computer centers, and so on, right within a walking distance of the apartment complex. Now, in some cases, if people decide to have children, they also have childcare on campus, which can help their situation. Now, the negative side of this kind of relationship comes in when these people graduate. So what happens then? They encounter what is known as the two-body problem, that it's somewhat hard for two PhD students to get a job in the same place, and very often they try very hard. There are some situations where this is possible, but it often happens that because the fields have become very specialized, one person may land up in a particular postdoc, a second person may go to a different postdoc or faculty position or industry job, and so on. So especially in fields which are very science or very academic type of fields where postdoc is the way to go, what may happen is that these people may even end up in two different countries and so on. Situation is better if you are in one of the fields where industry jobs are possible, because in that case what may happen, one person may get a postdoc or faculty job and the second person can get an industry job there. And the best situation could be if two people can both get industry jobs or job in some research center. It's generally quite difficult for two people to get an academic position and certainly a named postdoc in the same place. So that is the two-body problem. Now, many universities try to mitigate this problem. They try to have what is known as a spousal hire program, but again, these are only for certain candidates and certain universities, and diversity may be also a criteria in such hiring decisions. Now, the fourth problem is that of students who are PhD students and their wife or husband, as the case may be, is not working. So this may be a stay-at-home person. So what happens in this case is that the pressure to finish the degree is actually quite strong. Do remember that PhD students do not get a lot of money in their stipend, and therefore what will happen is that there will be substantial financial pressure to graduate and get a high-paying job or a reasonable paying job. So very often this pressure can come from the wife, it can come from the parents, it can come from the in-laws and various relatives of this particular person. So that's the good part about this one PhD situation. Now, of course, another good point is they can get access to the graduate apartments, to the married apartments on campus, and they can have a relatively low cost of life within the campus system, because very often in the campus things are sometimes cheaper, sometimes they are subsidized, but this of course depends on which campus you go to. If campuses are in big cities and in downtowns, then they can often be very expensive. Now here, of course, one advantage is that in the one body problem, it's more easy to get a job, get a postdoc and so on, because one person has to move and the second person is essentially a homemaker. So that part is simpler, but do remember that many postdoctoral positions and many starting faculty positions pay relatively lower salaries. This is typical of postdocs, and so what happens is that it may be hard to make ends meet if only one person is working. This is especially if you also tend to have children and so on. Now there are many postdoctoral situations such as the Humboldt which provide money for spouse and for children, but again these amounts of monies are quite low, so do keep these things in mind. I have often had comments on my channel that I am applying to a certain place and the salary is only so much, how can I live there with a family of 4 and so on. So that's something you need to consider when you are a single PhD person with a family to support that, whether you are able to get a job which can be sufficient to support this family. You will probably then have to directly go for a faculty position or apply to industry. Postdoctoral positions may often pay too low to support a family. So this was my take about marriage and the PhD. Now, many a time these things cannot be planned. Circumstances may be such that you are thrust into one of these situations, but now you know what are the pros and cons of each situation, so you can think about those things and make plans accordingly. So I hope this video is useful to you, and I will see you in a video sometime soon. See you then.